Hey everybody, I'm doing another one of these vlog things. It is as they always are completely off the cuff. I was just like, I should really do another one of those. I had a very nice comment from Jackie. Hi Jackie, who said this is like part of her nightly YouTube routine, and I know exactly what that routine is, and I know exactly why you're watching stuff like that at that time. So yeah, so I'm doing that now. Or I'm trying to, as I said, completely off the cuff as usual. Just wanna recap a little bit what I have done recently and what I haven't done and why. Haven't done another one of these until now. I haven't done any streaming. I've done a lot of podcasting, but yeah, basically some some bourbon. I need that now. It's been a very long day. I've done everything. A lot of writing. Wrote some print articles. I brought a very in-depth thing for Heise Online on this Pep PT thing. I think I talked about that. Wanting to do that last time. Probably gonna go into that in depth in a bit. I did some. Cheers, by the way. I did some wrote some other stuff. I've just recently wrote a commentary for the Ostfriesen Zeitung. Ja, die Ostfriesen Zeitung is East Frisia is a province of Germany, a very peculiar one. I like them. They're cool people, but it's a lovely country. But they have a reputation of not talking much and only drinking tea. I love it. I actually have a friend who lives down there. So that's gonna be it's like a guest column. It's gonna be it's about Corona apps as well. Um, it's gonna be out there in print tomorrow, and I hope he sees it in the paper. That would crack me up. Him probably as well. What else have I done? I did all the DMV business, so I got the car registered finally under my name now. That took ages. And then I wanted we modified it. So it has like a green, yeah, we have these eco things where like you need a certain like EU um, exhaust emission class thing. And then we have these zones that you can only go into if you have a certain class. And I needed to get the green one. I actually have it. Just look at that. Look at that, and you know exactly what my week's been like. I was thinking like I could fetch it, but I think it's in the other room. And that's. I mean, this explains everything about how my time's been going recently. It's just like everything chicken there. So I did that like weeks ago now. I don't know. Did I talk about that on the last weblog vlog thing? I don't know. Probably not. So I did that, but then I got the re-registering done, but then something was wrong, and then some papers were missing, and I couldn't do the change you need to make in the papers to get the green label thing to put in the window and all of that. So I did that today. In the meantime, I got my bike fixed. That I went to the garage for that. Yeah, I think I talked about that last time, didn't I? Anyway, that's all fixed. It's got, it can run for the next 2 years, and I've been actually been riding the bike quite a bit, even though they keep pulling me over. They're like, are you having fun? You're not supposed to be out if you're, and I'm just like, I just now have my press badge. I even have it in the cut now because they keep pulling me over, and I'm just like, going to the job, part of the press. This is important. This is important podcasting business. Fuck him, fuck him. I need that. I've been like writing for days. I'm just sitting in here. the wife's actually away quite a bit on her new job, and I'm just sitting here. I'm looking like this because I was so I had like a mohawk, right? And I was changing like the haircut, and then you have to like let it grow out on the side for like 3 weeks or so. So I had the plan to go when I was at the hairdresser last. The plan was there to go there again pretty soon to have it like all fixed, so that it's an actual proper haircut. And of course they shut everything down, and now I've got this thing that was supposed to tide me over. Yeah, and just look at it. I mean, okay, the gray hair, can't do anything about that, but you like kind of see it now when it's that long. I look like fucking 90s Pierce Brosnan. I mean, I've got the watch as well. It's like Goldeneye, right? If I had that dyed like he did, right? Just dyed black. Could be worse things. What did Dan always say? You know, if you don't know, a good friend of mine, Dan Lynch, I used to do a podcast with called Linux Outlaws, and I was always bitching about my hair getting gray, and he was like, "At least you still have hair." There's some wisdom there. So I got that done. So the car's all alright. It's all fixed up now. I've did in the meantime. I was like, it had some rust bits. I did like filed that off and then painted it new. The motorbike is okay again. Been riding that. And otherwise, I've just been sitting at home. I've been running a lot. Not this week because it's been, but like this month, I've never run. I think as in my life, I've never run as much as this month. I'm as fit as I was like 12, 13 years ago. I haven't been this fit in ages. Because I mean, what else are you gonna do? Work and then run. I've been playing some video games, of course, but mainly just writing. So yeah, that Pep PT thing. I wanted to do like a report, a technical report on Pep PT, because that was like the thing that like the German government was saying that that's going to be our Corona app. It's like a conglomerate of, well, originally used to be like scientists and then some guys from industry, and then all scientists jumped off because they were like, this is crap. And there was just like this one industry guy left, I think. But originally government had said, let's it's implement whatever app the Robert Koch Institute, the RKI, is doing. Let's put that into that framework. So I was like, okay, let's look into this framework. And I, contacted them, contacted the RKI, got contacted actually by the Bundesamt für Sicherheit in Informationstechnik, the BSI. They were like, okay, we're pen testing this. And I wrote a blog post about this. If you want the whole thing, I wrote like, that's only in German. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna explain here anyway. Yeah. I see. I've wrote so much I can't remember. And then then the BSI was saying like, okay, we need to. I should say BSI if I say RKI. So the BSI was like kind of, okay, we need to postpone this a bit because there's some stuff going on. And then later said, we're not going to talk about this at all, and then never talked to me again. The RKI, so where Koch Institute said, we're actually not doing the app. It's like another institute. Then I tried to reach them, couldn't reach. Like I was getting nowhere. They were blackballing me. And this is supposed to be like an open source project, right? And I was like, there's no code out. Meanwhile, the DP3T guys had their code out. It's like that. This is not going to happen. So actually, I want to write a story for Heise Online. I pitched it to them about like the background of that, and wasn't going to happen because nobody they weren't talking about. I was just asking like technical questions. Like some source had gotten me the some technical specs they had, like some preliminary ones, and I had questions about that. And they were like, don't know. Well, they weren't like, don't know. They were like, okay, yeah, good questions. We'll answer them, but we've got a lot to do. And they never got back to me. So I had no technical, no technical information. So I couldn't write that article. So I was like, okay. Meanwhile, then Apple and Google said they're gonna come up with like their proposal, right? And then I was like, okay. I'm just going to write about that. Well, at first I thought I'm going to research this. And then I was like, okay, this is kind of solid. And then I was kind of like, well, if Apple and Google built this into their like OSs, that's like all of the smartphone market. And like, who will build an app that doesn't use like the API, especially on the iPhone? If you read the stuff with like the app from Singapore where they had to have it open and the phone unlocked for it to work, for like a tracking app that's on all, like, what? That's not gonna fly. And nobody over here would install that. I was like, nah, that's. So I was like, they're gonna have to, if they do an app in Germany, they're gonna have to use this framework. And then I was kind of like told Heise the same thing. I was like, I could just write about that. And then yeah, I did that. And then so that was last week. And then on Tuesday, I'd recorded an interview with Jürgen Goether, also known as Tante. Really cool about these apps, but more like high level. It's a bit more philosophical and stuff. And then on Wednesday, I did recorded an episode on how actually the contact tracing in Apple and Google works, because I was reading into that anyway. And then I released that episode first on Wednesday, and then the Jürgen Goether episode on Friday, because I thought it was less kind of building up on each other a bit better. Yeah, and that kind of worked. And then I, wrote on the Heise story, and then on Friday, Apple and Google like revised their protocol and like changed all the crypto, and I just had finished that, and I was like, for fuck's sake, throw that whole bit out, write it again. Well, I did, and that story went online on Heise on Sunday. It's actually well received. It's got like 600 comments on it last time I looked, which is quite a lot for it not being like a a column or something like that. An opinion piece for a factual kind of thing. I mean, I put some opinion in there. I didn't want to, but they were kind of saying, we kind of want you to say if this is a good idea, like in your opinion. I'm very clear. I put at the end. I actually put me in the like first person, which they don't usually do on Heise. But I want to make this like completely clear that this is now the opinion part, and the other stuff is just technical stuff. And it's been actually very well received by people. Of course, they're like commenters in the forums, like, "Oh, Scherschler, that's not what he's talking about. You fucking idiot! Look at his hair." Man, if I look at myself, I look like fucking Rudy. I look like Rudy from Alpha Investments. Like, what's it? 3% beautiful women. Taco time! It's taco time. Oh God. Yeah. So that. Quite happy with that story. But the thing is, now I explained the old protocol on the last Private Citizen podcast. Should probably say that. I have a podcast called The Private Citizen. That's the one I'm talking about. Private Citizen or Press. And yeah. I don't know. Now I have to do, I think, so I don't even know what day it is. Today's Tuesday. I've got a hell of a lot to do. I think tomorrow I'm just gonna record another private, normal, usual episode, and I'm just gonna do a recap, I'm gonna talk about what's happened, like with all the Corona stuff and the tracking, and there's been some interesting developments. And then I think I'm gonna revisit that thing and explain the protocol, how it works now. Because it's just been a week and they've changed it. I think it's gonna come out like tomorrow or something, or the day after. I think they said 1st of May or something. Don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna do that, which means the next Private Citizen episode will be like a Corona episode, which I'm kind of wary of, because I've actually had people telling me like I skipped those episodes because last thing I want right now is Corona talk, which I can completely understand. I mean, they're all fucking is all over right now, like the whole planet. Well, I say they. That sounds like the Illuminati. It sounds like I'm sounds like I'm Alex Jones. The fucking is over. They're putting stuff in the water that turns the fucking frogs gay. That was my Alex Jones. That wasn't good, was it? Anyway, I need a truck, and then I'm like, they're turning the frogs gay. I'm telling you. Donald Trump should have all these people shot immediately. That's my Alex Jones. Yeah, where was I before the frogs? Anyway, people are fed up with the situation, which I can completely understand. So I'm trying to because I also think like there's other privacy issues that we have to look at. So I'm trying to mix it up a bit and get some of that content in there as well. But like, it's not. I want to do that. I'm going to continue to do that. But also, the big story right now is all this Corona shit, especially in privacy. There's a lot of shit they're pushing now that we have to keep an eye on. So I think that's just an important topic. And plus, I need to fix what I explained in the last episode. I think I'm going to do that if possible. I have another topic lined up that I could have done tomorrow, except I don't have any time to prepare that. I've got the Corona stuff like lying right here on my desk, basically. So I can just hopefully do that tomorrow. But the other topic, I've got something lined up. I would say I might want to do that on the weekend or something, but I just can't promise that right now. There's so much happening, and there's like just people writing emails. Can you write about this? Can you write about this? And I'm not going to complain. I'm happy I have like income right now. I know that I'm like one of the like, that is not taken for granted right now. So I'm happy, but I'm basically also, I don't know what the future will bring. So I'm kind of in a mode right now where I take all the work I can get, which as a freelancer, yeah, you can do that, but it's gonna get stressful really fast because you don't have if you've never done this, like I work from home and for myself, and if you've never done this, people tell you about this, but it's like you don't know that pressure until you've experienced. I sound like fucking style bender. I sound like I'm talking like about the UFC. You've done martial arts and you don't understand what it's like to step into the octagon until you stepped into the octagon. That's what it sounds like. But it really is that way. And then you realize that this is like, you don't have anybody, like even if you work for somebody, even if they're like a slave driver, right? There's people watching. There's like checks, Sometimes people will say, "Hey, you've been in the office like for the last 3 weeks, 10 hours a day." At least in Germany, I don't know. In the US, they're crazy over there. But there is somebody was saying, besides this actually being against the law, you're like, this is not good for you. And if you're self-employed, nobody cares. That's the funny thing. I love that. This is something. So I'm a big proponent of unions, and I'm just going in the sticks here. Just stay with me. That's what's gonna be. I'm like, I haven't slept a lot. That's the other thing. I'm not sleeping a lot right now. So my mind's all over the place. But like I always found that interesting. I'm really a big proponent of labor laws and unions and stuff like that. But the thing you never think about is like, that is only for employed people. At the moment, like there's great things that happen when you're self-employed, and you can just say, fuck you all, I'm going to go on my bike now because I need to get my brain empty and I need to just go somewhere. You can just do that. But then on the other hand, you don't have anybody watching over you. Like if you're going to work like literally 15 hours a day for like 10 weeks, you can do that. Like, and especially for me, it's like my wife works as much. She's not self-employed, but she works as much. She's in science, proper research kind of stuff, and they work like mules as well. It's like, it's amazing. Yeah, so I'm just like, that's also why my mind right now is just all over the place. It's been, I haven't slept that much because I've been like working till like 3:00 and 4:00 at night. And I mean working, like this is also like I'm writing stuff, some stuff for myself on my own website. I've actually rebuilt a bit on my website, my blog, fab.industries, ka-ching. Wait. Ad break. On that blog. I so I wrote this thing this week where I was like, I've been thinking about this for months. Uh, I want to get a bit away from social media. Not like it's complicated. You really this blog post in English, you can read that. That if you're interested, it's massive. It's like 20,000 characters or something. It's a big blog post. It's like 15 minutes reading time or something, but it's really in depth. And people who have actually read through the whole thing have said, "Wow, I'm really glad I read that. There's some really interesting stuff in there," and I'm not making that up. Yeah, so basically I want to change some stuff around. Like I want to do more content on my own sense. Basically what it boils down to, I'm not going to delete any accounts or anything like that. I'm just want to do more stuff on my own page. And part of that was like changing the blog so I don't have to do a blog post every time. I just want to paste a link or, more like a tweet, something. I've created like a content type called a node where you can put that in and like a linked content type, stuff like that. I can post pictures now, just images, to replace Instagram a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, so I've implemented that, which is just a little bit of work. I have like a Hugo site, and I've got this theme, which I originally like. It was an existing theme, but I've hacked that all to shit now. It's basically my own theme now. You don't want to look at the code that's implementing that. Luckily, you can't see that. That's not like rendered out. That's just like the stuff that before, like the templating before it goes into Hugo. I think it actually looks quite decent on the other end. It's like all these if statements. If people who are actual programmers would see that, they're like, "Fuck, Fab, what are you doing?" That's why I haven't open sourced the code. I don't want to deal with the flag. I mean, it works, so and I was kind of doing it at 3:00 after having written like technical stories for like 10 hours. So instead of playing XCOM, could have played XCOM. I did that. Started playing XCOM again, partly because that new thing is out, although I haven't started that yet. But just want to play XCOM 2 again, and it's great. I think I'm leaving that hair like that. That's good. Yeah, so that's what's been going on here. I mean, we still have the Rona lockdown thing going on. It is not as bad anymore. They made the rules more lax, which has gotten the Twitter was going, "Oh, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die of the Rona." But they relaxed everything, and not everything, but some stuff. Actually, the hairdressers are gonna open again in May. But like my first appointment, and I know I know her very well. She's great. I love her. Great person. But they're like totally. So I was like, okay, I can, put me in the back a little bit. There's probably like women with critical haircut issues right now that you need to get in there now. So I'm gonna have one in like 3 weeks or something. So I might not wear any hats anymore for these videos because this could get quite entertaining. I've actually shortly thought about just going dreads again, but I guess I could only do the top. Yeah. So that's and you can do more stuff now, but you now have to wear masks, which I like. I can't really like. I could not do it, and then I get into a discussion in every fucking supermarket, which currently I don't have the energy for that shit. Like I've got too much to do. I've got too much work to do. I can't. Like I just want to go into the supermarket, grab the 3 things I need, get back out again. You can buy toilet paper again. So today I had toilet paper again, which is good. But I don't want to deal with that. So but I don't want to wear a mask either. Like I don't have like a mask in my avatar because everybody's doing that. It's like fucking virtue signaling, and I don't want to virtue signal when I'm out. So I'm just wearing a bandana, like proper outlaw style. Today I came back from the motor thing place. But the car registry thing. I went down my motorbike on the way back. Had to go grab something I needed urgently from the supermarket, and I just left my motorbike helmet on, had like a bandana and then sunglasses, like they couldn't tell anything. And grabbed my 3 things. I go to the cash register, and the woman's like, didn't even look at me twice. And I probably have people now with like aluminium, aluminium hats or whatever, or like uh, garbage bag over their head. I don't know what's going on these days. They probably see weird shit, but like, and I was paying, and I said to her, it's like, I I I'm feeling really good about myself that I'm paying this, and she's like, what? And I'm like, well, in this outfit, you'd think I wouldn't have to pay. I could just grab it and go out. What you gonna do? She didn't find that funny. I thought that was funny. But yeah. I left her in peace after that. I mean, they have to deal with enough shit as it is right now. It's not her fucking fault that the whole world's gone fucking bonkers. Actually, the thing about so I'm going to talk a bit about Corona now. So if you're depressed about that or something, just turn off now. I don't know what I'm going to talk about that afterwards. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing here. But I read all this interesting stuff. So I think it's pretty clear now that it's definitely not the flu, right? It's more infectious than the flu. That is clear. It has some really weird shit properties, like it does stuff to people we don't understand, which makes it dangerous if you have it and you actually go to the hospital. Apparently, they like basically, I don't know if right now this information is like also fluid. You can't even trust, but there's like reports from doctors in Italy who, when they were putting people on respirators in New York, were saying, "Oh God, can't like you." I wonder if YouTube's gonna censor this. They're censoring. Like, I probably should. We should have a code word for like coronavirus. Call her Sharon or something. Anyway, so if they censor this, fuck him. I'm gonna put it up on my website somewhere. I don't know. Fuck the man. Yeah, so they were talking about this stuff where like these Italian doctors were saying we first put them on the wrong respirator settings because normally you like try to pump air into their lungs as fast as possible, but with coronavirus or COVID, apparently like your lungs are so fucked up that it just destroys them or something. I don't know. There's some really interesting studies about that it causes inflammation of the blood vessels, and so really young people die of it because they have strokes. There's some shit about it kills, I don't know. This is like all preliminary. Some of this is like old Chinese researchers, and if you see papers like that from some Chinese research university that you never heard of, that you researched and they just opened up in 2019, you don't know. You don't know if you can trust this shit. But and who the internal Chinese peer review process for papers is renowned. If you know any natural science like scientists, they can tell you a lot about that kind of shit. But there's some stuff about it kills like it does something to your hemoglobin, which means your body can't so the exchange where you breathe in oxygen in the lungs and then it goes into your blood, that gets fucked up, which is why people have these respiratory problems. It's like really weird. But then the thing about Germany that I read, this is great, and this is all like YouTube can censor me for this, but this is like all facts. Because this is like all down to we have the Robert Koch Institute, and they declared COVID as like the new coronavirus as a SARS-CoV-2, as it's called, as a disease that you have to register. So every case, when they diagnose it in a lab, all of that, like when somebody's tested positive, gets sent right to the central, the RKI, which is the government institute, so it's kind of like the CDC. They know everything. They have all the official data, and it's pretty clear data. And according to their own data, the whole lockdown didn't work because you could just look at their graph, and you see when the lockdown went into effect, which is like March 3rd, I think, and like so they have a graph of this R0. I think people call it R0. Like that's the value. How many people infect other people, and you want to be under 1, because 1 means, I guess one person infects just one other person, and then it kind of stays level, And if you go over R1, you get into exponential growth, and then you're fucked. But if you look at that curve, that curve went down like 3-4 days before the first things went, before the school closures, before canceling all events. Like 3-4 days before that, it went to 1, and it has ever like it went above it shortly for a little bit, just a day, and then another day, but like it stayed at that. And that was like completely before the lockdown. So that tells you two things. If you look at that graph and you know a little bit about statistics, you can read the graph. It tells you one, all the lockdown, the canceling of all that didn't have any effect. Well, no, first all that didn't cause the infection rate dropping. That happened before, so it wasn't caused by all these measures, and the measures don't have any effect because the curve is like, it's like it goes up, right? It goes up, and then it goes down, and then it stays like at 1 basically, and it just stayed like that. And after the lockdown went in effect, it just stayed like that. And then there was a great article which I also posted on my blog on the German side at Telepolis, which is like a blog that Heise bought some while ago, and they're a bit out there. Sometimes they got some conspiracy theories, but they also like publish things that other people don't want to publish. Especially Heise, sometimes they're fiercely independent. They've got nothing to do with the Heise editorial stuff. And they had like this psychologist from Nuremberg, I think, no, Regensburg, who is like, starts off with, I'm not a biologist, not an epidemiologist, I'm not a virologist, I know nothing about this shit, but I can read graphs. Because when you study psychology, you study, statistics. And he just goes and takes like all the Robert Koch Institute numbers and looks at what they actually mean. And then you figure out, like, it's quite amazing. Like, he talks about when, when the measures went into effect, and if you can see that, and he has other points where it's like he goes into, so when are you actually tested? Like, and there's a time where you get the disease, you don't have any symptoms, then you get symptoms, then you get tested, then it like takes like a day or two for the test to come back, and then the result is reported. So if you look at all the graphs, the numbers of infected people, that is not when they were actually infected. It's actually, several days shifted because it takes some time for people to get symptoms and then for the test to work. And the same thing is with like dead people. It takes even longer because it takes a while when you die. Sometimes you need to, they were tested after they were dead. Anyway, that needs to get processed. Sometimes that takes a week. That's just like the normal process in Germany. So when you look at when the measures went into effect and when the deaths drop off, if it drops off on the same day, that's actually not from the effect of the measures, because all your data is like delayed by 5 days or something. So if something took effect, it was actually 5 days earlier, because there's like this delay of reporting all of that. He analyzes all of that. It's great. And then the best thing is, the thing I had suspected for a long time, it's like, if you test more, you find more. He goes into that with, just with statistics, and he explains how it works. He explains how it works that you like statistically how much more you will find if you test more. And then he goes through the graph and all the graphs and then basically explains that, I don't know if he's right. He also says he doesn't know if he's right. He just says, I've just analyzed this data and it's been reported wrong. And he just said there probably was no exponential growth, at least in Germany. This is all based on German data. There probably was no exponential growth. The exponential growth we saw was because we tested more. We basically ramped up testing exponentially, and because if you ramp up testing, you find more stuff. And then he explains how that all works. It's pretty great. You'd have to read it to get it completely, and it's in German, so it's a bit bad, but it's like, that is of course not, as always, I think I said this before, it's a horrible disease and it kills a lot of people, and it's really horrible if you know if that's something that happens to you. That's just horrible. Or to people you love, people that are close to you. That's just it's just a horrible thing to have happen, and that anything I say has like not no bearing on that at all. Like I'm just looking at it um from a viewpoint of of society. I'm looking at the rules that came into effect and all that, the impact that had on society. That's the thing I'm interested in because I studied history and politics, right? But if I say any of this, is of course like I have people that are immunodeficient that I love. My grandma's 98. I don't want any of these people to die. Who knows? I could die if I get it. I don't know. Maybe I have some lung issue that they've never seen. I mean, I was healthy my own life. I've never been in a hospital. I've never been checked out. I could keel over from that thing and die. But if that happens, that just happens, right? And then in that thing, he also talks about like of course, New York and stuff. It's what happened in New York and in Italy is really, really amazing and bad, and it's like you can't explain that and from the data he's looking at. And obviously he just looks at the German data. I'm just looking at German stuff. I have no idea what's going on in New York. I don't know how. I don't. I can just have reports and you can see what they show you in the media, but you don't know if that is. I mean, I know for a fact that what they report in the media, it's not that they. I don't want to say that it's not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily reflect the facts, because I know a lot of people in hospitals, and in Hamburg, I've been interested in this thing ever since I wrote my first blog post about this at the beginning of February, and even before this, I was reading about all this, and I know a lot of doctors, and I put out some feelers, and I've got some really good sources for the local stuff in Hamburg. I've got a really good overview over the local hospitals. Not only does my wife work in one, but like also the other ones. I've got some really good sources, and I got basically all the numbers from all the big hospitals in Hamburg, and what the media is reporting how bad the situation is and was, is actually not reflected. The situation so far in Hamburg was never bad. These doctors I talked to, they were, and I think still are, largely afraid of that second wave, of that first wave that might have come, right? But that wave never hit. Actually, the hospitals right now are, of course, it's logical, are emptier than ever before, because they never, kind of like the ICU beds, yeah, they're, that is not critical. I think they've got 40% slack currently. But it puts a strain on that, definitely, because these patients are in there. I think here it's like on average 17 days, which is that's not normal for like ICU people, like go into ICU beds. But generally the hospitals are like completely empty because all the elective procedures have been stopped. Like the people that I know that work in the emergency room, they're like, there's nobody there, because usually like, I don't know, 80% of the people that go to the emergency room could have gone to a normal doctor. They've got like, sprained ankles and sinews that are ripped and broken bones and, relatively minor stuff, because okay, you need like a splint, like your GP could have done that. So that's all gone. Because everybody's deadly afraid to get the death virus. So I know that like what I read is being reported internally in Hamburg, like, oh my god, the hospitals it's so dangerous, we're gonna die. And then you talk to the doctors and they're like, nah, actually it's fine. I mean, we're worried about what might happen if the people don't stay inside and all that jazz, but so I don't know. So that's why I've got no fucking clue what's going on in New York. I mean, it might be that I have a feeling it's also a factor of the health system. I mean, that definitely, if you read like some reports in Italy, that definitely played into that. But who knows? Who knows? Still lockdowns in effect because they relaxed it a little bit, but still the same thing. It's not like everybody's staying inside. I said I'm running a lot, and I can't do physical distancing there because everybody's out there. There's like everybody's running, everybody's walking the dog, walking along. I mean, it was great weather as well, and then people are just home. I had a feeling for like the last 2 weeks. Sometimes I went out and I was like, am I the only guy who's working? Because everybody's out there. Once in a while I thought, like, if the people that just work in offices had just gone to work, it would probably have been better for the whole like prevention of infection, because then they had at least been always around the same people. Now they're just in the park, like walking there, and they have to do that. There's a reason I don't have kids. Like, imagine you have kids now. I mean, some of you might have kids. I don't know. And I would in this small flat, like if my wife had to work from home and I had to work from home, and then I know people that live in the same size flat we live and have 2 small kids, right? They live above or below us. It's like the same layout of the flat. I'm like, I would go fucking insane. I couldn't take that. Like, in the landlord company, we have all these like playgrounds, right, outside for the kids, and they're all like tied off and can't go there. So they're just playing beside that, like on the walkways. Of course they are. What are the kids supposed to do? Can't lock him in the room for 4 weeks while there's sun outside. They're gonna go insane. Like, who thought these rules work? Like, what are you doing? And then you're riding alone around on the motorcycle and the police stops you. Like, I wrote on my column, I think last week, or last Sunday, but the Sunday before, I wrote about how they stopped me like in the middle of nowhere, and I was riding around in like a enclosed helmet, right? And the guy is like, you should be inside. You don't have contact to people. And I'm like, mate, I've been riding around on my motorcycle alone for 3 hours. You're the only person I've had contact to since I left home, and there's nobody home. So you're basically the only person I had contact to today, right? I went to fill up at the gas station. By the way, diesel is €1 now. Wow. Well, not for the motorbike. No diesel there, but like for the camping bus. If you could go camping now, that would be amazing. Yeah, so, and he was like, okay, kind of makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, dude, what are you doing here? Like, I know you have your orders, but maybe think about your orders being complete, utter dumb fuck bullshit. Like, can you even think critically? I mean, but I guess that's it. Like, people can't think critically anymore. They're like, oh no, have to listen to the state. The state knows best. And then I'm like, what really pisses me off? Okay, little rant alert. Wait. Rant alert. Warning. Rant alert. So I'm like on Twitter. I'm talking about, like, I've never said, this is the amazing thing. I challenge you to find any video, podcast, or writing where I've ever said, ever since this thing started, that I'm against any measure, any specific measure. I'm not against the lockdown. Never said that. Never said I'm against this and that, closing the border. All I want is good reasons for it. That's all I want. I think that's reasonable. And I'm only saying, look, we live in a democracy. We have a constitution for a good reason, especially in Germany, right? In Germany, in case you're not that up on history, most people know Hitler and the Nazis, and many people don't know that before that, we had a democracy in Germany. So the German Reich, the empire that Bismarck built, we had a revolution in 1848, 1808, and was it 1818? Well, there was a revolution 1815. Anyway, we had revolutions. Bismarck basically built a state, and smashed on. They had a revolution before that, and Bismarck smashed that down and built a state. That was a monarchy. It was a monarchy with a parliament, and Bismarck was the chancellor. But he was like there at the, the chancellor would be called into office by the king, and the king could sack him at any time. And when the king changed, the new king sacked Bismarck. And then we had World War One, and then we had another revolution, kind of a quiet kind of revolution, but they actually, would say deposed the king, but not like in France where the chop is. Basically, the German Empire was turned into a parliamentary democracy. It's really hard to say. It's called the Weimar Republic. I wouldn't say it's like a like if you're American, it's not like what you would think of. But basically it was a republic. The king wasn't in power anymore. We had a parliament, and we had a chancellor, and basically the constitution they came up with had a big flaw, and the flaw was, if we have exigent circumstances, if we have a national emergency, then the chancellor can take like lots of stuff away from the parliament and remove the government from parliamentary control effectively, because we are in a national emergency and it's like war. I think it's probably like based on World War One and experiences there, and that's how Hitler got into power. Well, that's too easy, but that's the legal framework that enabled Hitler to turn the Weimar Republic, which was a democracy, into a dictatorship. And so that was a long-winded way of saying, when they made our constitution, the Grundgesetz, not technically constitution, but basically is, the American constitution is also like hacked together out of different, there's previous laws like the Bill of Rights, stuff like that. So our constitution was built after the war under the very clear understanding that we can't have that. We need like inalienable rights that the citizens have that can never be changed. Never, ever, ever. And there's some emergency stuff in there, but there's some stuff in there, that is basically, if early on they would have said it was like God-given. It's like God-given rights. But this is like, obviously more modern concept. It's basically like human rights. It's like rights that we all believe people have. And so the German system, the German constitutional system works by, you can suspend some of these rights, and you can temporarily take these rights away from people. So for certain reasons, and they're well established. So if you join the military, and it used to be that we had a draft, and every male, we actually still have that, it's just paused. Every male in Germany at a certain age would have to go into the military for a year, and the constitution says that you have a right to personal freedom. That doesn't apply when you're in the military, because you'd have to do what they tell them, otherwise they'll lock you up. There's the thing, free speech, and if you shout fire in a movie theater, all that kind of stuff. But that's always, it has to be weighed, right? So whoever decides that, I have the right to go outside and to personal freedom, and whoever decides that right should be curtailed must have good reasons. And one valid reason is the health of the overall population. And that's why I was never against these measures, because they make sense, and they are they can be argued for in our framework of our laws and the constitution, definitely. And that's what like Merkel and everybody did. The problem is that has to be justified. And you can make a mistake, right? You can go, shit, there's like a virus coming out of China. The Chinese haven't told us what the fuck's going on. We need to lock down the border now. But the thing is, you need to reevaluate that, and you need to go like, okay, this was justified, or you need to say, well, that wasn't justified, and we need to get rid of it. Kind of like, in Israel, they were spying on the phone tracking for everybody, and the parliament said, well, this isn't justified. Stuff like that. The big problem I'm having is that they're not doing that. The data from the RKI shows that the measures they implemented are not working and weren't necessary. Basically, I think what happened is, there's a natural curve with all diseases. It's always, population gets sick, then without laws, doesn't matter. A population gets sick, they realize something is wrong, they'll stop touching each other and stuff, and the disease goes down. That's how every disease works. Talk to an epidemiologist. It's just like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? I mean, Germany is a very obedient country. This is another reason why we had Hitler. We listen to people when they're the government, even when they're from Austria. I don't know. So I personally think that actually it worked because they scared people in the media, and people were like, yeah, physical distancing. They were doing that. And that would have all been okay without curtailing all these personal rights. Anyway, this whole thing, oh God, I've been recording for a long time. Oh my God, it's almost now. I'm sorry. If you listen to all of this, you're mad. Anyway, I'm just going to wind that up. What I wanted to say with all of that is that it pisses me off that I say we have rights and they can take them away temporarily, but we need to make really sure that's only temporarily, because it's never temporarily with politicians. Otherwise, unless you force them, that. Just have a look at history. And we have those rights, and I'm just saying we have those rights, and they're important. You can take them away temporarily, but we have to be mindful that we have them, and then we need to defend them. And then people call me right wing. Seriously, there were people on Twitter who called me right wing. Now think about this. Okay, think about this. You don't have to have studied history or politics. When somebody advocates for curtailing the rights of the state, when somebody argues against the government having more power, how is that right wing? What the fuck is right? Like that is the definition of left wing. That is always going into, okay, it's not going into anarchy, because then you're like, you don't believe in the Constitution, all these rights, but it's left wing. It's like, I don't want the totalitarian state. I don't want the state to curtail my God, or not God given, but my human rights. Well, they're not human rights, but you know what I mean. That's like a classical left argument. I think where this comes from is that in American politics they have libertarians, we don't have libertarians in Germany. We have liberals, right? They're not libertarians. We don't have this, concept of personal freedom like they have in the US. We don't have, gun rights in the Constitution, all of that. Like we don't have a concept of the citizens defending themselves against the state and all that. But the position I have in the US with those arguments, I think would be a libertarian position. And I think because the Americans have a weird system and they don't know what socialism is, they don't know what left. Sorry, if you're American, I'm sorry, but I say you might. I'm just generalizing here. Of the 300 million Americans, probably most of them have no clue what in science, in history, what socialism is. And I don't think they have any clue what left and right is, because from a European perspective, the US system, like leaving out like they have a Green Party, and like the two big parties are both right wing parties. Like the Democrats in Germany would be a conservative party, and the Republicans would be to the right of that, right? We have labor parties, and we actually have leftists. We have, it's a bit different, but I think for some reason libertarians have gotten, because they like I don't know, because they like Trump or they like weapons, and the left, in air quotes, in the US doesn't like them. I think they get pushed through, they get seen as right. Also, libertarians, I think, traditionally have all the nut jobs. Like Alex Jones. I don't know if he's libertarian. What I don't, but that's how it feels for me. I think that's where it's coming from. But to call somebody who is advocating for the state having less power right wing, you're a moron. You don't know what you're talking about. Right wing, and they're also if you're on the Fediverse and you're on Mastodon, then they call you a fascist. And they don't know what what socialism is. They don't know what fascism is either. So fascism, the whole point is you're totalitarian. You are the state, and the state has all the power. Actually, the thing they're advocating with right now to have these closures is a traditional, I wouldn't say fascist, but a traditional totalitarian argument. The argument that your personal rights are subordinate to the well-being of the majority of the people is a classical totalitarian argument. Like, if you read Goebbels, and I've studied this shit. I don't have a degree. I never got that far. Cheers. Kind of like Bill Gates. Never got anything except, like him, I'm not a billionaire. That is like, if you read Goebbels, that's how the Nazis, that's like how all the arguments work. We have to invade Poland because we don't have enough living space for all the people. It's always, we have to kill these people, but it's better for the majority. Right? Okay, here the argument is different. It's like, okay, if we don't do this, the people will die. But it's like, structurally, it's the same argument. It's like, your personal rights are subordinate to the rights of the to the the well-being of the majority, and that is that's the rights of the many and the one his box. Utilitarianism. Now, I don't say that is necessary. To have a good governance and you need both arguments. You need people who advocate for individual rights, and you need people who advocate for the well-being of the majority. And our system is generally very social. Social democrats, not socialists. Social. We have social healthcare, social welfare programs. Bismarck started that, by the way. Who was as conservative as possible. But he started all of that. He started all the welfare programs, the healthcare, social healthcare, all the insurance programs for unemployment, all Bismarck in Germany. But you need both sides. It's not like one is better than the other. And I'm not saying that argument can't be the argument that the Chancellor of the Federal Republic should decide by. There are moments, and I'm not convinced coronavirus is it. But let's say it was Ebola. I think it might be the first. Yes, of course, we all need to stay in. Fuck, 80% death rate. Jesus Christ. Or if there's a war or whatever, there is reasons for that. But a discourse and a democracy needs discourse, and a democracy needs all voices. This is why it pisses me off that YouTube censors like people who say stuff about this that is not a mainstream audience. They're like, oh, we censor everything that's COVID because it could be a conspiracy theory. Yeah, fuck you. But a society needs that discourse, and that discourse is, first of all, not happening because it's very one-sided in TV and in radio and in the papers and in the big media, and then, like, you need both sides, and you need to maybe recognize it a bit, like, understand that is not right wing. That is like the opposite of right wing. Just because I think where that also comes from is like, you think of yourself of being left, and you think we should need to do this. So everybody who thinks the opposite must be right wing. But the funny thing is that the left is the stuff they're arguing for, stricter laws, people need to stay in and the state needs to enforce that. Those are progressive people that would see themselves as left wing, but they're using more right wing arguments at the moment, which isn't bad. They can do that, but they need to recognize that they're doing that. It's like hilarious. Like if a week or two ago, Trump was criticized in the US media because there were some states that were saying we're not going to do a shelter-at-home order. And it's like places like Arkansas, right? Where shelter at home largely makes no sense because, I mean, they can go, like their property, like most people that live there, their property is bigger than like a city block in San Francisco or whatever. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, there were states who were saying, well, we're not going to do the shelter-in-place order. And then the Democrats, who think of themselves like left-leaning Democrats as well. Like, I'm not talking Joe Biden. I'm talking other people. More like on the Ocasio-Cortez spectrum, like on the left spectrum of the Democrats. They were saying, Trump needs to tell the federal states now that they need to, Trump needs to enforce this. And you're like, first of all, federalism. That's why you have federal. You hate Trump. You're advocating now that the president starts to like turn himself into, I wouldn't say a dictator, but in the framework of the American Constitution, go totalitarian on the fucking federal states. Like what? You wanted to impeach him like 3 months ago, and now you want him to be like all-powerful guy that can do anything to the states, where he can say, well, you have to lock your people into place now. It's like, these people are so convinced that their solution is correct that they are not thinking about anything else. They're not thinking about the consequences of what they're saying. They're not even thinking about like if their conclusion is right. I mean, I'm not sure my conclusion is right. Maybe this is bad. Maybe maybe it is actually bad. I'm actually thinking about that whenever I do like a podcast or I talk like this, and I'll sit down and I'll be on the shower tomorrow morning. I'm thinking like, are you right? Like I read something that goes into another direction, and I go like, man, maybe these people are right. And I think that's just normal. That's what you need to do. You need to question yourself. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to say so. Like if it turns out in 2 months we have good data and it says, Fab, you're an idiot, this was very deadly and everything they did was right, which I didn't say it wasn't right. But I'll be the first to say I should have said, whatever. I could be wrong. Of course, everybody can be wrong. But my point is, even if I'm wrong, somebody calling for the fact that we need to protect our privacy and we need to protect our civil rights, and we need to watch out that the Constitution isn't infringed on, right? And that they're not using this emergency thing to put like laws in place that will be there forever or for a long time. That's right. That doesn't even change. Like, I would say that when millions of people are dying, because these are rights that are non-negotiable. They're not down to an argument where you say, well, oh, your constitutional rights are all well and good until 10,000 people are dead. And then when we hit 15,000, then it's obviously now you can't, right? These things are either right because they are right. That's why they are, they're the few laws that we actually have that are based on morals and ethics, right? Case law about murder has nothing to do with ethics or morals. That's all about preserving our rule of law, and what happens when we don't punish people for killing other people, right? That has nothing to do. That whole thing has nothing to do with like if it's morally wrong to kill somebody or not. That's not why these laws are there, and that's not how they're argued. But there are very few laws, and it's in most countries it's a constitution. In Germany, it's the Grundgesetz, and it's also only the first, especially the first 10 articles. But the Grundrechte, as we call them, the basic law, basic rights, that are there for a moral reason, and they are tied to our society and to our basically, a state is a I don't know who said this. This is like the first thing you learn in like history and political science, right? The state is a contract, right? This might be Aristotle, is it? Was it Plato? I don't know. It's like, it's a contract. It's basically people decide we want to live that way, and we decide on certain things. And there's certain things we have to decide on. One of them is, not killing other people. But more important than that, it is how our democracy is structured. And that's why we have freedom of speech. Because we need to have elections and to have a fair and balanced system where there's a government, and then there's the parliament, and then you have all these balances of power, right? One thing you need the right for everybody to say, within reason, of course, but that's all put in there, so you weigh it out. But to speak their mind. If they can't do that, if you don't have a free press, for example, then the whole system falls apart. And if you can't exercise your right to protest, then that whole system falls apart. Or it gets damaged because you vote. You need to have a system where you vote a government in for 4 years, and you need to have checks and balances on them. What happens if after a year they all go mad and start doing things the population doesn't want? There need to be a system in place. There's the opposition in the parliament, but there's also the right to protest against there's a special law that's very specific. There needs to be a way for the population to tell the government, no, we're not having this. And there need to be certain rights. And yes, they can be paused and everything. There are good reasons for that. But I'm repeating myself. But you have to think about why. And you can't call people right-wing because they're doing that just because their opinion doesn't annoys you or something. Anyway, I hadn't planned for this to turn into an hour rant, and I have to write my daily newsletter now, so I'm gonna quit while I'm still ahead. Is that a lie? I'm not really ahead. I'm not anything, right? If you watch this whole thing to the end, I salute you. If you're Jackie, go the fuck to bed now. And anybody else, have a good time. I love this. I don't know if you like these things. Please continue to give me feedback. I love bouncing my ideas back and forth like this. Makes me think. I hope YouTube doesn't pull this down because I said the Rona too often. And otherwise, I think I will keep doing these because I think they're good. I feel good after I've done them, and I think that's the important thing. Stay safe out there, and keep fighting. Keep fighting for your right to party. Cheers.